flooding disaster. The nation's fourth largest city largely underwater as thousands in Houston call for help, trying to escape the flooding being called unprecedented and catastrophic. Tonight, the dramatic rescues by boat and air in Houston and beyond, including people trapped in a nursing home in rising floodwaters, some of it bringing echoes of Hurricane Katrina. And a big question, did the mayor of Houston do the right thing in not ordering an evacuation? We'll ask the governor of Texas as the region braces for up to 50 inches of rain on top of widespread destruction along the Gulf from Hurricane Harvey. Tonight, Houston stretched to its limits, now appealing to the public for boats to join the struggle to save lives as a disaster unfolds in a city and state under siege. Nightly news from Houston begins right now.
This is NBC Nightly News with Lester Holt, reporting tonight from Houston.
Good evening. The nation's fourth biggest city is a city of islands tonight. Neighborhoods separated by rising floodwaters in the face of an unprecedented amount of rain. A stalled tropical storm Harvey still tormenting the region 2 days after it came ashore as a hurricane. At least 2 people have died because of the storm, including one here in Houston, where rainfall amounts could reach 50 inches, 50, before it's over. Tonight, 3,000 National Guard members are deployed across the disaster zone from Houston to Corpus Christi. And as crews begin to tackle restoring power and removing mounds of debris in the areas that took direct hits from Harvey, tonight it is water that has this city on its heels. Too much of it, too quickly, and no place for it all to go. And not since Katrina have we seen so many dramatic water rescues, urban water rescues, people desperate to literally keep their heads above water. Our team is in place to cover it all, and Jacob Rascone leads us off tonight from here in Houston. Jacob, good evening.
Lester, good evening. This neighborhood where rescues are happening nonstop flooded more than 10 feet in areas in mere hours, an example of the disaster and its fury.
It is a colossal rescue effort. Thousands stranded, taken by boat and helicopter.
Water's so high, the boats are going over the top of the cars.
Saved using anything that floats. Their faces tell the story of anguish, anxiety, and fear.
The water was up to here. I walked out and I was just like screaming. I seen somebody, they tried to put us on air mattresses. It didn't work. They had to put the babies on air mattresses. People were carrying babies on their shoulders.
With emergency responders overwhelmed, Houston Mayor Sylvester Turner is asking people to call 911 only if their life is in danger, as he defended his decision not to issue a mandatory evacuation order.
But I want to thank those thousands, in fact, millions of Houstonians who heeded the advice and did not get on the road.
The city has now opened its convention center for evacuees as rescue teams plead for the public's help.
Those of you who have boats and high water vehicles that can be used in neighborhoods to help move people out of harm's way, we need your help.
And Houstonians have responded en masse.
You know, if they need my help, I'm going to do what I can.
Back in southeast Houston, Frank Pena woke up surrounded by water.
All the beds, everything, furniture.
All gone.
All gone, everything's gone.
He moved into this apartment just 3 days ago. His neighbor upstairs took him and 3 other families in.
Are you going to stay until the water goes away?
Might. Probably not if they come get us. We need help. A whole bunch of families displaced, has lost everything.
The Morales family lost nearly everything, including their stove and much of their food.
You can't eat your food. This bayou is usually nearly empty. Within a matter of hours, it's 30 feet overflowing into these apartments, and all these people are trapped.
While scrambling to save her mom from floodwaters in a nearby city, Samantha caught on a flooded interstate herself, climbing to safety.
My mom, she said that there's water going in there and it's 3 inches deep. I thought I could make it to the other side, but I didn't think it was that deep.
America's 4th largest city fighting to survive a still unfolding calamity.
You spent most of your life in this city. Explain what you're seeing through your eyes with that personal connection.
It's my hometown. It's hard to see, especially here, the pain and the suffering. It rains and storms here often, but never quite like this. But I'm encouraged watching Houstonians help each other come together, and I'm confident that no matter what comes next, they'll do just that. Lester?
Yeah, and I got a chance to see some of that, Jacob, a bit earlier. We'll show that later in the broadcast. Thank you for your reporting. It's important to note that this emergency is not confined to Houston. There were calls for help and rescues in other areas today. One of those is Dickinson, Texas. It's about 30 miles to the south of where we are. NBC's Gotti Schwartz is there with the story from there tonight.
That's right, Lester. We're here in Dickinson right now. You see there are families out here that are trying to get to safety. And then you've got people that are waiting in chest-high water. You've got cars. We just passed a Hummer that has been submerged. You've got garages, houses. Some of the water comes all the way up to two-story houses. In fact, look at this. This is a car that's completely submerged. Earlier, there were a lot of people standing on top of their cars that were waiting for rescues. But this is what you see for miles. In fact, just a little while ago, we were at a retirement home that was evacuated by some helicopters. And look at this house right here. This is what we're talking about. That house has 2 tents on top of it. People have been evacuated from this area, and you've got that helicopter up there, and it continues to evacuate people. But the floodwaters down here continue to rise. Right now, they're about 6 feet, 7 feet in some areas, and the only way to get around here is boats. Lester, back to you.
Some really stunning images. Gotti, thank you. And as you heard, one of the rescues today was in that nursing home in Dickinson, where residents waited for hours as the floodwaters rose. At the same time, the recovery from the destructive winds of Hurricane Harvey has only just begun. NBC's Kerry Sanders now with that part of the story.
The water came up so fast there was no time to evacuate La Vita Bella nursing home. Trapped residents, many in wheelchairs, waist deep in water. When this shocking picture went viral, only then were they rescued by helicopter. Tonight, even with 3,000 members of the National Guard deployed across southeast Texas, rescue efforts and the humanitarian response stretched to the limit. Lines for gas.
No more gas, no.
Lines for food.
I'm just trying to get food and water, anything I can, because, I didn't expect this hurricane to be that bad.
Tonight, more than 75,000 people are still without power.
Just a whole bunch of waiting. That's all you can do is wait until the power comes back on.
Roads like this one in Rosenberg have collapsed. In Victoria, 30 miles inland, evacuees who returned from a shelter today found their apartment building burned to the ground. In Galveston, a flash flood alert remains. Harvey slammed the Texas coast as a Category 4 hurricane. Under cover of darkness, its peak 130-mile-per-hour winds ripping through the small community of Rockport. The fury hitting Corpus Christi, Port Lavaca, Galveston. The damage estimate runs into the billions, and the storm is not over yet. Tonight, police here in Victoria have been going door to door, warning residents who live along the Guadalupe River that they need to prepare by Wednesday for a flood along this river. Residents here who have no electricity say without television and radio, they would not have known were it not for the police coming by and knocking on their doors. Lester?
All right, Kerry Sanders, thank you. And as you note, Harvey remains a tropical storm. It will linger over this region for several days. Therein lies the problem. It's expected to dump as much, and I'll say it again, 50 inches of rain before it's all over. Let's get the latest forecast from NBC meteorologist Dylan Dry. Every time I say that, I have to check the copy. 50 inches.
It's an incredible amount of rain, and if you think about it, we have about 25 inches on the ground in some areas, so only half of what we're going to see is on the ground right now. And the radar says it all. You can certainly see where all of this moisture is coming from. It is tapping into the Gulf of Mexico, which means we have an endless supply of moisture to fuel these downpours. We have seen rainfall rates of 4 to 6 inches per hour. Right now, the highest rate we're seeing is about 1 to 3 inches per hour just east of Houston. It is still a tropical storm, but notice the movement, stationary at this point. So we will continue to tap into the Gulf of Mexico, and until it moves, we are going to see these downpours over the next several days. It's going to dip out over the ocean or back over the Gulf of Mexico, so it maintains its strength as a tropical storm before it finally weakens by the end of this week. So we are looking at these flash flood warnings, so expansive from Houston to Bay City, Galveston, even into Lake Charles, Louisiana, where the catastrophic flooding is already occurring, and these flash flood warnings will last through midweek. So as we mentioned, we already have about 25 inches on the ground in some areas, but an additional 10 to 20 inches of rain still is yet to fall, creating those storm totals over 50 inches of rain. And it's not just the rain falling, but the rivers are rising, and that's going to continue to be a concern well beyond this week.
You took the same drive I did from Corpus Christi. Some of those downpours were breathtaking in their intensity.
The wipers don't go fast enough, and that's why the water's piling up so quickly.
All right, Dylan, thanks very much. There's growing controversy tonight over whether this city should have ordered an evacuation before the storm moved in. Today, the mayor defended his decision not to issue such an order. NBC's Stephanie Goss has more on that for us.
Rain fell fast and didn't stop. Water rising to levels no one in this city has ever seen. Now some are questioning Mayor Sylvester Turner's decision not to evacuate.
Every bayou went over its banks. You cannot put in the city of Houston 2.3 million people on the road.
In the build-up to the storm, Texas Governor Greg Abbott suggested some people should leave.
With the possibility of flooding being what it could be. Again, I would urge people to strongly consider the evacuation process.
In 2005, millions did, as Hurricane Rita barreled towards the coast. Traffic jams stretched for hundreds of miles. Dozens of people died in car accidents and from the heat, all before the storm even hit. Scenes city officials were eager not to repeat, even though evacuation plans have been improved in the last decade.
Many of us in this city remember when the evacuation order was ordered before, and we've learned our lesson from that.
In a neighborhood on the west side of town, even as they struggled with rising water, some residents support their mayor.
I think they handled everything appropriately. I really do. Telling people to run, where are they going to go?
The mayor's message tonight, check on your neighbors and stay put if you feel safe. If not, head to one of the many shelters that are open around the city, including the convention center. There are already 500 people there. Lester?
Stephanie Goss tonight. Thank you, Stephanie. And for more on the evacuation issue and the response to this disaster, we are joined by the governor of Texas, Greg Abbott. Governor, we're glad you're here. Let's dive right into this evacuation issue. Do you wish they had heeded your suggestion to get out here?
Lester, now is not the time to second-guess those decisions. What it is time for is for all of us to work together as Texans to help our fellow Texans. Listen, we have lives on the line right now, and that's why I have deployed 3,000 National Guard members as well as almost 2,000 DPS officers across the endangered regions so that we're going to be able to save Texas lives. That's all that matters right now.
And I know you're looking at the same weather data we are, but you also know the capabilities here on the ground that are still coming. Governor, how much more can you take? Half of the rain that we're talking about, this 50 inches, hasn't even fallen yet.
Well, Lester, of course, this is really unprecedented, but we're going to find a way to deal with it. Listen, we've dealt with hurricanes and storms before. We will rebuild here. One thing that will help us rebuild is that I quickly asked for a presidential declaration of a disaster. We are already getting help from FEMA. FEMA is going to be on the ground here with us tomorrow. In fact, we've been working hand-in-hand with them this past week. And so we will be able to rebuild from this very swiftly because of the swift action from the White House making this a national disaster declaration.
All right, Governor Abbott, good of you to come on today. Thanks so much. We appreciate it, sir.
Thank you.
The White House announced late today that President Trump will visit Texas on Tuesday. The president tweeted his comments on the storm today, praising the coordination between the federal, state, and local governments and saying the effort was going well. NBC's Kelly O'Donnell has more tonight.
Late today, President Trump returned to the White House from Camp David, where he held a second video link conference with senior officials planning the federal government response. But the president did not respond to shouted questions about the storm.
Mr. President, what do you need to do by going to Texas?
Instead, he let social media do the talking with a burst of tweets. And just 4 words appeared to frame the scope of this crisis: major rescue operations underway. He also seemed eager to give high marks on the response in real time. Good news is that we have great talent on the ground. A more urgent, even dire tone came from FEMA Administrator Brock Long.
We are deep into the life safety mission of helping people be rescued through swiftwater rescue, search and rescue.
Homeland Security Advisor Thomas Bossert says the Trump administration expects the worst is still to come.
So what we're focusing on now is saving lives, and that's rightly so.
The president's attention was also drawn away to unrelated issues like the wall Mexico will pay for, and a planned trip to Missouri that I won by a lot in 2016. But most of his tweets were focused on Harvey. The president said he will be going to Texas, but wants to avoid causing disruption. And that Texas trip will be Tuesday, when conditions will still be difficult. Rain will still be falling. The White House says they're working with state and local officials to find ways for him to visit without interfering. And tonight, Governor Abbott says the president will be able to see parts where the hurricane hit, but where cleanup and recovery has already started. Lester?
Kelly O'Donnell at the White House, thank you. Still ahead tonight, the question that a lot of people are asking, just why is flooding so common in Houston? We're going to look at the many reasons involved. Also, some of the remarkable rescue efforts we saw today, not by the police or fire departments, but by neighbors and family members helping one another. We'll be right back.